had you made a deposit on that before? I don't remember. I dealt with a realtor and he showed me the property. And now, what property is the 814 Elm Street property? That's the 3 small houses bought second. Now look at your schedule at check number 505. That's dated February 18, 1986. Yes, that's the deposit on the Elm Avenue property, is what your notation says to Gordon Realty. Yes. Mrs. Wayne, could you have made a mistake on that $500? Is that the deposit for the Elm Street property? No, I did not make a mistake on that. You're positive that's the Elm Street property deposit? Yes. All right. Now, if you go up to 495 on January 28, 1986, you find the deposit of $500, which says for the Maple Avenue property. Is that the same? That's the first property bought. That's the same one that you paid the cash for on March 25, 1986. Yes, the deposit would have been put down when the paper was made out, when I told him I would purchase it, and then it had to go through the escrow for the other check. Now, I'm looking at your schedule here and trying to find, just a minute, on May 14th, check number 617, Bank of America for $47,478. That was just a month after the money came out about that. That says Bank of America, Maple Street. Also, now which check are you? Well, that's the check number 617. Yes, that's the apartments, the third property bought. It should be 826 Maple. There's 2 Maple properties. Did you make a deposit on that Maple Street property? Probably, yes. When did you make that deposit? I don't know. Within a few weeks before or something. How many weeks before? I don't know. I don't know. There was a deposit made before that. All right. Did you pay for it in cash outright, or was there an escrow opened at some place? Now, this was all through escrow and a real estate person. Okay. So you had your normal lag time in an escrow. Were they 30-day escrows at least? I don't know. Here's a $1,000 check for that same property. Which number is that? 556. 556. That's for the apartments. Courtesy escrow, $1,000. So by April 1 of 86, you had decided to buy that property too. Hadn't you? Yes. So you had basically, it seemed to me, decided to buy all of those properties prior to the money arriving from the fund into your bank account on April 11, 1986? Yes. Now, Mrs. Wayne, when you took that money out, there was a penalty, wasn't there? Yes. Evidently, there was it seems to me like this was a front-loaded fund, meaning that the broker gets his money up front if you withdraw within a certain period of time, or there's a penalty of some sort. Is that basically what happened? I have no idea. All I know is that when the money came back, it was $10,000 less. You don't know if the fund decreased in value or if there was some penalties attached to it, right? No, I don't know how that took place. Do you feel in any way, Arnold, is that Arlen was responsible for your loss of that $10,000, or approximately $10,000? Yes. Do you think Arlen somehow or another ended up with part of that $10,000 in his pocket? I have no idea. Do you suspect that he did? I have no idea. Now, regarding your apartments again, your testimony is then that Arlen didn't do any work other than the recalled mailbox that you worked on together? Yes. Isn't it true that he helped remove the trash from all 3 apartments' parcels? No. And cleanup and painting of the, let me rephrase that, the units on Maple Street. Did he help with any of the trash and general cleanup? Which Maple Street? The one with the houses? No. Did he clean up and help paint the rear unit? No. Did he replace fascia board, or do some repairs for termites? No. I don't know how you would repair for termites, but let me back up. Did he do any work on the building to correct termite damage? No. Did he replace the toilets in the unit? The toilets were never replaced. Okay. Did he do any work on the swamp coolers? There was never any work done on them by anybody. I had a person repair one for me after I moved out. So what you mean is that Arlen didn't do any work on the swamp coolers? Yes. Did he clean off the roof and repair gutters? No. Did he rewire and repair TV antennas? No. Did he add and repair electric circuits in the garage? No. Repair front water sprinklers? No. Do any trimming or removal of shrubs, trees, and haul them to the dump? No. Now, on the 3 rental units on Elm Street, other than the new mailboxes, did he install or repair lights and the water heater? Let's first do lights. No. Did he do any work on the water heater? No. But he did help install the posts on the 3 mailboxes. And did he help install bathroom facets? No. And did he do trash removal, getting it in shape for you? No. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time. Is there redirect? Yes, very well. Mrs. Wayne, before Mr. Johnson and I became involved in this action, you were represented by Ronald Slates in Los Angeles, is that right? Yes. And he prepared the first amended complaint that Mr. Crafts showed you? Yes. Do you know what a cause of action is? I think so. What do you think a cause of action is? Something you're going to sue about? Okay. Do you know what declaratory relief is? No, I'm not sure. Do you know what constructive fraud is? No, not really. Did Mr. Slates tell you that you were suing Arlen Grotus, Richard Grotus, and all persons unknown, claiming any legal or equitable right, title, estate, lien, or interest in the property described in the complaint adverse to plaintiff's title, or any cloud on plaintiff's title thereto? Did he tell you about that? He must have. I don't know. Do you know who those people are? Who were the people? Everybody that wants a claim on your property. Do you know if anybody had a cloud on your property? No. Do you know what clouds on your property are? I guess something that wasn't paid off before it was bought or something. You didn't prepare this first amended complaint, did you? No. It looks to be 25 pages. Is that the one he showed you? Yes, Did you run down and see Mr. Slates and say you believed that you had a cause of action for constructive fraud or conspiracy to fraud or diversion, and you wanted to plead those in the alternative? He did this for me. Oh, okay. So some of the things in here are inconsistent with one another, aren't they? I really don't know. I don't suppose you do. Let's work backwards. I think Mr. Crafts mentioned termite damage on the rental properties. Do you recall anything with regard to termite damage on the property? There was monies allowed in the real estate for doing the termite work, which did not get done on the apartments and on Elm Street at all, and only fumigation at the 2 houses on Maple. While the houses were in escrow, somebody did a termite report? Yes. And they said that X amount of work needed to be done? Yes. And rather than doing the work, you reduced the price of the home or the property? When I sold it, you mean? No, when you were buying it. Yes, they allowed in escrow funds for that work to be done. But it was never done? Right. Do you still have Exhibit 12 there? Would you look at Exhibit 12, the register of checks, starting at page 4? If you recall, Mr. Crafts started at check 457, showing a cash check for $7,000. Would you look up higher on the page to November 29, check number 440? Yes. That's an additional sum of $5,000? Yes, it is. So that wasn't included in his total? Right. Also, when I believe you testified yesterday that when the money's first $20,000 came back from the $40,000 investment received, there was less cash deposit on that deposit? Yes. Do you remember how much that was? $4,000. Did you ever hand Richard the $33,000 plus the $5,000 check? The cash and the check. Arlen took them over to his house along with that receipt to be signed. Do you know for a fact that Richard was paid on that date? No. Do you know for a fact whether Richard was ever paid? Objection, Your Honor. As a leading question, overruled. You may answer not actually. Arlen said he was. Your recollection is sometimes in late November, at or about the time you received the proceeds from your house. You gave Richard $2,000 around that time. And did Richard make any comment about why that $2,000 was needed? I had brought some cash home that Arlen wanted, and I was handing it to him. And Richard was standing there, and right away he stopped on his feet and throwing a fit, and he insisted that he needed some money right away towards his escrow. He wanted it all, but we didn't have it all, I told him, and so I had to give him some. And so we gave him $2,000 out of the money I brought to the house. He testified yesterday, Richard did, that escrow closed on October 4, 1985. That would have been prior to the time you gave him the $2,000? I think so, yes. As of April 19, 1986, when he signed the receipt, were you told that he had closed his escrow? When was the date? The date of the receipt on April 19 for the $38,000. No, he told me, they told me, or Arlen, that he needed the money to close. Arlen told me that Richard told him that he had to have the money right now to finish up the escrow that was closing now. I was led, gave me the understanding that, objection, Your Honor, it's non-responsive, overruled. You may continue your answer. That we were waiting, that escrow was still coming, and right then he needed it because that's when it got there. Let me show you 4 bank statements, Bank of America account, dated approximately the 25th of each month, February, March, April, and May of 1985. Just 1 minute, Mr. Hurston. Would you review those particularly as to the balances? I would like to mark those collectively as the next in order. They will be marked collectively as the next in order. When you do that, you review them silently to yourself. You understand that? No more speeches. At any time during the time period from early February 1985 until May 25, 1985, did the bank account have $30,000 or more on deposit? No. So at least from that bank account, or from that bank account, would you have been able to pay Richard $30,000 for his interest on the property on March 1st, 1985? No. Can you say with certainty that Richard was not paid on March 1st, 1985? March 1st? Right, 1985. Can you say that he was not paid? That he was not paid? That he was not paid, yes. Not really. Move to admit these. Do you want to be heard on those? No, Your Honor. They will be admitted as one exhibit, plaintiff's 25, and with that, we'll take a noon recess. Ladies and gentlemen, as far as the time estimate is concerned, to complete the case, I've talked with counsel this morning, and it looks like we're going to be going Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. That's the way it looks. We're not making quite the progress we hoped. You are excused with the same admonition, not talk or research, that sort of thing, nor to form or express any opinion about the case. You are excused until 1:30. Thank you. Mr. Histon, you can resume your examination. Thank you, Your Honor. Mrs. Wayne, this morning Mr. Crafts inquired of you your check number 521. Do you still have your exhibit there, or did we retire it for lunch? We retired. Check 521, February 28, 1986. During the lunch break, were you able to review your records and determine as to whether that was a check written for your consultation with the doctor? Yes, I did. And it looks like I said the other day that my consultation with him took place in July of '86. And the consultation with him, that was with regard to your injuries to your head and heels? Yes, it was. Mr. Crafts was just advising that it was apparently evident that that check was not for Dr. Reese and the injuries complained of. I would stipulate, very well, that stipulation is approved. Would you tell me one more time how the injuries to your heels occurred? When I was thrown on the ground backwards, your heels struck the ground or concrete, or yes, very hard. $180, 4 voice for 5 minutes. Starts with question by plaintiff's attorney. Ready? Would you tell me one more time how the injuries to your heels occurred when I was thrown on the ground backwards? Your heels struck the ground or concrete, or yes, very hard. Mr. Crafts also asked about prior names that you have had other than Rachel Wayne. What was your name immediately prior to becoming Rachel Wayne Sandra Holton? Was that your married name? Yes, it was. And sometime you decided to change your name. Was there a reason for that? Yes. From the time I was divorced, I had always planned to change the married name. It meant nothing to me after that, but I didn't have a name in mind. And when my son died, I decided to take his name in honor of him for my last name. Was there some reason you didn't take your maiden name? My maiden name, my parents had changed our name when we were little kids, so my maiden name wasn't really my original name. I had considered going back to my very original name because it meant something to me. But when my son died, I decided to take it in honor of him instead. When you met Mr. Arlen Brodus, what name did you give when introducing yourself? Rachel Wayne. Was that legal? Yes, I had that done through court. Have you ever introduced yourself to someone using anything other than your legal name at the time of the introduction? No. Yesterday, he asked you some questions regarding your deposition testimony, at which time you were apparently more vague as to the amounts of money transferred down to the timing of those amounts that you have been here on trial. At the time of your deposition, were you testifying from any documents? No, I was not. Had you reviewed any documents prior to your deposition? No. Prior to commencing this trial, have you reviewed documents? Many documents. And those documents serve to refresh your recollection of the facts? Yes. When you were living in Cherry Valley with him, how was your daily schedule determined? Oh, a lot of times, most of the time, especially in the beginning, Arlen would make a list of things for me to do, usually more than I could get to. And on some occasions, that would be to do some work on the building. It was for all kinds of work, yes. Run a lot of errands, lots of errands. I believe you testified at Mr. Kraft's examination that at the time of the $21,000 check of your money was paid to Laura Coffey, you were not aware that that was being done. Is that correct? No, I wasn't. At the time that you paid the $38,000, that was for your understanding to go to Richard. Did you know you already paid $21,000? No, I did not. Thank you, Mrs. Wayne. No further questions. Recross-examination? Just a few, Your Honor. Mrs. Wayne, did you need to review documents and records that you had after your deposition in order to remember bringing down $50,000 cash and a couple boots in your luggage? I don't think there's any testimony she brought any money down in her luggage. It's not clear where the boot was. I assumed it was in her luggage. I was wearing them. I misunderstood then. I assumed if there was $50,000 cash in your boots, they would have to go in the luggage. There wouldn't be any room for your feet. No, it split up evenly. They were wide. My question is, did you have to review documents and records in order to recall flying down to, you did fly? Yes. The Bay Area down to Southern California with $50,000 stuffed in your boots? It helped. I have had a lot of trouble remembering things since I was hit on the head. Okay, thank you. Mr. Histon asked you about some other cash that you might have had available. Do you have your list out? And check number 440 for $5,000. I don't recall the date on that. I just wrote down the number, November 29, 1985, cash. And your purpose, memo says Ford Farm Construction. Would you look that check up for me, please, in your book? Okay. Now that check has a notation on the bottom of the check for Ford Farm Construction. This again is one of the few checks that had a notation on it. Did you write that, or is it your dad's? That's my writing. Did you write that at the time that the check was made? I believe so. Was the $5,000, let me ask you first, what was the Ford Farm Construction? That refers to the building on Cherry Valley, the Beaumont address. That was going to be the name of the place, is that right? Yes. Okay. Ford Farm Construction, was that money used for that construction? I don't know if it was or not. That's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you. Okay, Your Honor, may I reopen my cross-examination? Yes, sir, you may. Thank you. Mrs. Wayne, when I was cross-examining you earlier today, I neglected to ask you some questions that I wanted to go over with you. I asked you if you had removed a whole series of various items, personal effects from the residence after you left the residence for the final time. Yes. We established that that was sometime in, was it November of '86? December '86. November, beginning of December. Okay. And I don't recall asking you about any old coins. There were 30 silver dollars. Did you take those? No. How about approximately 10 nickels? Now, the only coins I saw were 2 gold coins of mine that were cashed in. All right, let's stop there, and we'll start back in 10 minutes.
I didn't get that much sleep. I went to bed about 12. Then we'll probably woke up about 1. And then my alarm clock went off about 5:35.
Tell who you are.
Okay, I'm for defense, Mr. Ogle, O-G-U-L.
I am the court.
I am the witness.
And for plaintiff, Ms. Parrilli, P-A-R-R-I-L-L-I.
Okay, and we're starting at the bottom. Question by Ms. Perilli.
Mr. Rodriguez, how old are you?
20 now.
What is your date of birth?
10/23/62.
Where do you live?
662 7th Street.
Is that here in Oakland?
Yes.
Directing your attention to April 12th of 1978 at approximately 5:45 in the evening, do you remember where you were?
I was on 13th and Broadway at the bus stop.
Is that 13th Street and Broadway, do you know?
Yes.
If you could please remember to say yes or no.
All right, yes.
At the bus stop, were you with anyone or were you alone?
I was with my brother,
What is your brother's name?
Edwin Rodriguez.
And on April 12th of 1978 at approximately 5:45 in the evening, was your attention drawn to any person in particular?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, excuse the interruption, but I believe we might have witnesses in the courtroom. If there are such persons present, I would ask that they be excluded.
All right, the court will order any witnesses that expect to be testifying in this preliminary hearing or at the trial, if there is a trial, to leave the courtroom.
Thank you.
Who was your attention drawn towards?
To that man right there.
You are pointing to somebody in the courtroom today. Can you tell us where the man is sitting, who you are pointing to, and how he is dressed?
That guy in the middle, in the green, in the middle.
It is stipulated he is referring to the defendant, Felipe Dieguez.
Very well.
And where in relation to you was the defendant when you first saw him on April 12th?
He was getting off the number 40 bus, and I think it was on 13th. It was right there, yes.
When you first observed him, did he have anything in his hand?
Yes, he had a bag.
And after you first saw him, what happened next?
We walked over there, and we were right there by the bus stop. He was on the other side of the bus booth.
Well, let me stop you there. What happened next?
And that is when he went in his bag and pulled out a gun and shot us.
What part of him went into his bag?
His arm. He put his hand in the bag.
And when he removed his hand from the bag, did he have anything in his hand?
He came out with a gun.
When his hand came out of the bag, did he have anything in his hand?
He had a gun. I saw a gun.
What happened next?
Then he shot me, and then I ran at the booth.
Let me stop you right there. The first time he shot you, where were you shot?
I was shot in the stomach,
When he fired that first shot, how far away from you was he?
about 5 feet.
And can you demonstrate how he was holding the gun?
He brought it out like this and started shooting.
After you were shot that first time, were you shot again?
Yes, after I went out of the booth, I was fixing to run. I got shot in the back.
What happened then?
I fell down on the ground and he came around there and shot me again in my arm.
During this period of time, did the defendant say anything to you?
No, he was just smiling.
Of the results of your injuries, did you go to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
What hospital did you go to?
I went to Providence.
How long were you in the hospital?
14 days.
I have no further questions.
Your Honor, again, for the record, now that I have just been given an opportunity to observe for the first time approximately 20 additional pages of police reports that were not provided to myself or my office previously, I feel that I am unable at this time to fully cross-examine this witness to the extent that is required to provide adequate assistance as counsel to my client.
How much time do you need?
I would ask for a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes.
All right, the court will take a 10-minute recess. All right, are you ready, counsel?
Given the time limitations we have already discussed, yes, I am, Your Honor.
All right, we have taken a 20-minute recess. I didn't want to rush you.
I have had an opportunity to complete reading the reports. As I have pointed out to counsel, it appears that portions of statements from some of the witnesses are missing. Counsel has assured me that even the police department cannot, as of this time, find those statements.
They are not statements of any witnesses who are going to testify today.
All right, you may cross-examine.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Rodriguez, on April 12th of 1978, where had you been before you arrived in the area of 13th and Broadway?
I was coming down from 11th and Jefferson at Old Man's Park.
Did you walk to get to 13th and Broadway?
Yes, sir.
How long had you been in the area of 13th and Broadway before you ever saw Mr. Dieguez?
Oh, I was down there about 15, 20 minutes.
How long had you been at Old Man's Park before you left there?
I had been down there all day, all the time.
On this particular day of April 12th of 1978,
I had been there all day before I walked to Broadway.
is Old Man's Park close to where you lived on April 12th of 1978?
Yes, sir.
To get to Old Man's Park, did you walk there?
Yes, sir.
Prior to the time that you saw Mr. Dieguez on April 12th of 1978, had you ridden on any AC transit bus that day?
No, sir.
Prior to the time you first saw Mr. Dieguez on April 12th, 1978, had you ridden on any BART train that day?
No, sir.
Had you been in a BART station that day?
Yes, sir.
So you were in a BART station, but you did not ride BART?
Yes, sir.
What did you do in that BART station?
I went down there and asked some people to give me some of the bus tickets so I could jump on the bus.
Okay. These were bus tickets that people would get while they were inside the paid areas of BART?